What happens when the greatest hero in the world, I mean, a legendary musician, magician, fighter, just decides to vanish?
Yeah, disappears. Hides their real identity, all that power, just right there in plain sight.
Pretending to be this quiet, maybe even broken innkeeper.
Exactly. That massive shift, from this glorious legend to this sort of reluctant, isolated guy. That's the core mystery we're digging into today.
It's like the ultimate bait and switch, isn't it?
Yeah.
You meet the quiet failure first.
Right, and then you spend, hundreds of pages finding out about the epic success story he had to leave behind.
Okay, so before we really jump into unpacking that transformation, we wanted to let you know about something new we're trying.
A new structure.
Discover a new, in-depth approach to book coverage with this extended summary. Now, unlike our previous review, which gave more of a focused analysis,
This one's more comprehensive, a broader overview.
we're tracing the intellectual roots, the key arguments, the real-world impact, the whole journey.
So if you find this expanded format helpful, definitely let us know. Your feedback really helps shape what we do next.
Absolutely. So today's mission.
Today, we are summarizing the journey laid out in Patrick Rothfuss's incredible fantasy novel, The Name of the Wind.
We're following the life of Kvothe,
Yeah.
this amazingly gifted genius.
As he tells his own story, his heroic past, all while he's living in deep hiding as, Kvothe the Innkeeper.
And as we unpack all these layers of myth and history in this detailed analysis, just remember,
You are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM.
which lets us bring you deeper, more dynamic book summaries. Okay, let's get into how this story is actually built, the structure.
Right, the mechanics of it.
Okay, let's unpack the narrative mechanics, because honestly, the way this story is told feels almost as important as the story itself.
I agree. The whole history of Kvothe the hero, it's given to us through a frame narrative.
Yeah, it's not like a straightforward autobiography at all.
No. You've got the present-day frame, this quiet rural town, New Roaning. Everything centers on the Waystone Inn.
And that present timeline is so critical, isn't it? It sets this mood of, well, failure.
Yeah.
And dramatic irony.
Totally. Because we, the listeners or the readers, we know Kvothe is capable of these amazing, magnificent things.
But we're seeing him act as Kvothe, just this weary, almost kind of powerless innkeeper.
And in that quiet setting, you have the main three figures of the present day.
Kvothe obviously hiding as Kvothe.
Yeah.
Then there's Bast.
Bast, his devoted Fae assistant and student who really, really wants his master to become that hero again.
He's pushing him.
Constantly. And then finally, Chronicler, the scribe.
Right. He shows up basically to record Kvothe's life story over 3 days.
And that decision, telling it over 3 days, it forces Kvothe to break his life down into these huge but still digestible chunks.
What's really fascinating there is the contrast, right? The claustrophobic quiet of the inn.
Yeah, compared to the sheer scale of the story he's telling from the past.
Which moves all over the place. The dangerous city of Tarbian,
Yeah.
the scholarly world of the university.
Even through various sort of mythological places.
It sets up this core tension in the book, this kind of philosophical question.
What's the difference between the actual person and the story, the legend, that gets built up around them?
Exactly. When Kvothe tells his history, is he giving us the straight truth?
Or is he maybe polishing the legend? The very legend he seems desperate to keep hidden now.
It makes him a bit of an unreliable narrator, almost by necessity.
It does. And the world building Rothfuss gives us is just immense. It's a place where naming the wind isn't just poetry.
No, it's real. A demonstrable, powerful kind of magic.
Right. And music can literally change your fate, your reputation.
And myth, like the Chandrian, these ancient beings, they're always lurking just under the surface of everyday reality.
So if we connect this back, the foundation for who Kvothe becomes is really laid bare in his childhood.
Yeah.
With the Edema Ruh.
His traveling troupe family. They're kind of a cultural cornerstone in this world, aren't they? Known for their music, their performances.
Their wandering lifestyle. He starts out in this really supportive, rich environment. It fosters his natural genius for music, for learning.
He basically begins life with almost every advantage except maybe, like, stability roots.
True.
Yeah.
But then the story just pivots dramatically.
Yeah. The absolute instantaneous destruction of that life.
The murder of his entire troupe, including his parents.
And this wasn't just some random tragedy, was it?
No, not at all. It was targeted. An obliteration, really. And it's tied directly to his father's research.
Into those dangerous old ballads and ancient myths.
Exactly. The culprits are the Chandrian, these powerful, malevolent beings.
They're not just your typical fantasy villains. They seem to represent something more, like an active resistance to knowledge, to history itself.
That's a great way to put it. And this trauma, it serves a real narrative function beyond just giving the hero a motive.
Right. It strips him of everything, his identity, his home, forcing him to spend years just surviving.
And the streets of Tarbian, this brutal, crime-ridden city.
And those years are so crucial. They transform him, don't they? From this gifted kid into a pretty ruthless survivor.
Precisely. And his focus during that time, it isn't really immediate revenge, not at first.
No, it's this desperate, almost obsessive drive for knowledge.
He figures out pretty quickly, I think, that the Chandrian aren't creatures you can just face with a sword.
They're a mystery, something to be solved with information.
Exactly. So the Chandrian, who are linked to all these dark events throughout history, often marked by strange signs, like the famous blue flame.
They become the central, unifying goal of his entire life. Everything he does after that, it feels like just gathering the tools he needs for that eventual confrontation.
Yeah.
And that weaponized curiosity, as you called it, eventually leads him to the legendary university.
Right. And the irony is just palpable. He gets into the most prestigious academic institution in the world,
While being completely broke, destitute.
his success there is purely down to intellect overpowering poverty. It's quite something.
The university sections are dense, though. Lots of detail.
Oh, yeah. We see him mastering scholarship, advanced combat, and crucially, the discipline of sympathy.
Sympathy is fascinating. It's like the academic, almost scientific branch of magic in this world.
It is. Requires precise calculations, mathematical thinking, material links. You need resources, both material and mental, to wield it effectively.
And the cost is incredibly high for him. Not just the poverty, constantly scraping for tuition, the egress fees to stay enrolled.
But he also runs straight into these intense rivalries,
Right.
ongoing clashes.
Most notably with Ambrose Jacus.
Ah, Ambrose. Wealthy, entitled, antagonistic.
He's the perfect foil, really. He represents the very system Kvothe is fighting against or trying to break into.
And their feud isn't just talk. It often has immediate, real-world consequences, sometimes magical ones.
These conflicts with Ambrose constantly push Kvothe, testing his knowledge, his temper.
And we see the practical side of his quest for revenge emerge here, too. He starts using the university's resources, its archives.
To investigate things like those mysterious blue flame murders.
Exactly. Which clearly link back to the Chandrian legends he's obsessed with.
So his academic work and his personal quest become basically indistinguishable.
They completely merge. And it's during these escalating conflicts, really driven by his intellect but also his desperation,
That we start to see the true extent of his latent power. Okay, at this point, we should probably take a quick moment to mention Mindful Moments.
yeah.
That's our YouTube channel. It offers AI book analysis, summaries, critiques, all designed to inspire reflection and rational thought.
And it's really valuable for aspiring authors, too, I think. Lots of good insights there.
Definitely check it out. Okay, so returning to Kvothe's power.
Right. The height of his magical ability, or at least what we see in this book, comes during this spectacular confrontation with Ambrose.
Which forces Kvothe to reach for something deeper than just the academic sympathy he's learned.
He calls the name of the wind.
In calling the name of the wind, that's a whole different category of magic, isn't it?
Oh, completely different order. Sympathy is about manipulating energy, using links, calculations.
While naming is about understanding the fundamental truth, the essence of a thing. An object, a concept.
It bypasses the academic knowledge. It requires this inherent, almost spiritual connection to the world's deep structure, its lore.
And mastering that, even for a moment, elevates him. He goes from being just a brilliant student
To this powerful figure who can actually bend the rules of reality itself.
It confirms his legendary status is maybe not all talk.
But it also puts him on a much more dangerous path, right? It attracts attention.
Yeah.
Probably unwanted attention from powerful hidden forces.
Now, beyond the academics, the magic, the revenge plot,
Yeah.
we absolutely have to talk about the emotional core of his journey.
Denna.
Ah, Denna, yes. She's maybe the most elusive and arguably the most important figure in his entire life story.
She's also a talented musician, like him, also wandering, unstable. She really mirrors Kvothe's own instability, his need for freedom, in a way.
Their relationship is just so complicated.
It really is. It's defined by these intense but fleeting moments of connection. They never quite solidify into anything permanent.
And what's fascinating about Denna, I think, is how she kind of challenges his control over the narrative.
How so?
Well, Kvothe is this master manipulator of perception, right? He's an incredible storyteller, shaping how people see him.
True.
But Denna, she remains this enigma, someone he can't fully understand, can't capture, can't control.
That's a great point. She acts as this constant reminder that for all his power, all his knowledge, his emotional life is still chaotic, unresolved.
And the prose itself, the writing style, reflects that emotional complexity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The critical reception for the book almost universally praised Rothfuss's writing. The lyrical descriptions, the dialogue feel so natural, detailed.
The whole world just feels incredibly immersive.
It manages to feel both fantastical and somehow deeply grounded at the same time.
So if we step back and look at the big themes, what really stands out?
Well, I think there's a profound exploration of how stories themselves shape reality.
It's a coming-of-age story, for sure.
Yes, but it's also kind of a meta-narrative about how legends get created.
Exploring that gap between the glorious, heroic Kvothe the world hears about.
And the desperate, flawed person who's actually telling the tale from the inn.
And wrapped up in all that is the cost of knowledge, the impact of loss, the drive for revenge.
All explored through this lens of storytelling and memory.
The book was huge when it came out, really celebrated.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It established Patrick Rothfuss as a major new voice in modern fantasy. The rich world building, the compelling characters, that lyrical prose.
It earned him a fiercely devoted fan base.
Oh, absolutely. A community that is very eagerly awaiting the conclusion of the series, hanging on every detail.
Okay, so to summarize this whole comprehensive overview we've done,
Yeah.
we've traced the journey from the gifted Edema Ruh boy whose world just shattered,
Right, through those brutal years of survival in Tarbean.
to his rise as this prodigy at the university, mastering both the scholarly magic of sympathy,
And that deeper inherent power of naming.
all driven by this relentless pursuit of the ancient Chandrian.
Which brings us right back to the present day in the Waystone Inn, and that ultimate unresolved tension.
Yeah. If Kvothe achieved so much, mastered music, magic, combat, what on earth could have happened?
What devastating event could have forced him to just abandon the world, shed his name, his identity?
And live in fear as Kvothe.
The current storyline at the Waystone shows Kvothe seemingly, well, broken, hiding his legendary past, unwilling or maybe unable to use his power.
Even when these dangerous, strange attacks start happening right there in Newer.
That gap, the huge chasm between the heroic Kvothe we hear about in the story.
And the mysterious, withdrawn Kvothe we actually see in the frame narrative.
That is the real provocative question the book leaves you wrestling with.
What kind of ending makes a hero choose exile over glory? What could possibly break someone like Kvothe?
That, I suppose, is the story that still remains to be told in the next installment.
Click the link on screen to subscribe, share, purchase via link, and think rationally.
See the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.